Hello guys, this is Levi and today talking about why academics are not, generally speaking, interested in ufology and metaphysical extraterrestrial type of topics, and if humanity gets to a point where mythical, mysterious, fringe topics in mainstream science can be introduced to it and transcended, this world would go massive evolution. Of course, currently speaking, there are really so many barriers. We have the general consensus of how things are, the general media. We have the collective agreement in how things are. Yet if you look at Stephen Greer's work, it completely shatters everything, and when that will become reality for the scientific consensus, or when that becomes known to science, what will happen? Currently speaking, to me is really interesting why academics are not interested. And one of the main theories, of course, is that bridging gap between belief and evidence is of course always difficult, especially with big claims comes with extraordinary evidence and so, and thus the scientific community approaches things with rigorous precision, so it can't truly entertain, at least not yet. This is about to change, hopefully. When we look at Instagram, for example, a social media platform, and people's knowledge barrier, where they get their information from, and its correlation to your brain usage, what parts of the brain does the information activate, and does it make you smarter or not, is really important. Because currently speaking, a lot of those fringe topics that are not introduced in the mainstream side can make people kind of irrational if not questioned well. And it's not that the information is factually too bad, but that it lacks the critical steps of validation and checking, and thus those topics are not truly respected by true academics, and thus those topics don't truly advance forward in the real world. They only stay in the algorithm loops of people believing there is some grand agenda against humanity. And what is important to remember is that sure, at some level there is, but doesn't mean that this kind of academical approach wouldn't be useful. Actually, this would be one of the most useful things to do, because if we look at Dr. Greer's work, one of the main problems in his approach, in my opinion, perhaps just suggestion, is that why doesn't he go to academics to talk about this subject in scientific detail? Why he tries to approach it as a frontman into the politics? This, in my opinion, is a scientific problem first and foremost, when talking about, of course, extraterrestrial defying crafts, this should be understood with science first before making it about spirituality or metaphysical things that are, things that easily make people irrational and which are kind of opposing this academic approach, meaning academic difference is that you really have to be methodological and careful and precise with belief systems, with spirituality. You don't have to be accurate at all. You can just, and that's dangerous for humanity because it can actually lower your intellectual abilities and make you believe things you wouldn't otherwise believe. So this is this parallel problem of there being more advanced species and technology than we currently have, but we are approaching it from this religious POV rather than the intellectual. And the problem with it is that even if the beliefs are somewhat correct on topics, like I said earlier, it's not satisfying enough. It's not hitting the necessary parts that humanity needs. And of course religion always involves a lot of emotion, and emotions are dangerous also because they twist things, they make things, heavy. Of course emotion like love and other beautiful emotions, they are really great, but when emotions are unchecked, uncontrolled, humanity loses its mind. The collective mind of people, if we look at the funny side, if you look at from the perspective that how much programming can be attributed to human mind through internet and smart devices, and how far that programming is from the actual reality when you go to the streets. So it's kind of like there is one reality in the web, other outside. And the reason why this is really important is that many people perhaps do not recognize that their web habits and bubbles are truly kind of limited in there. And of course there is the mainstream bubble of how things are done. There are many players in the scenes, and the goal of course with science is to kind of get to the root reality of things, how they are, and build solid enough base intellectually for humanity that humanity can unite politics into some kind of rational, non-ideological religious thing, but rather something great and rational, and so much human potential can be opened. Of course this is really difficult because we are fundamentally irrational beings. I don't think any intelligent species are fundamentally rational. Is there even such a thing in the universe as pure rationality? All beings are distorted to some degree from something, even AI, or especially AI. So what I mean by irrationality is that there is difference between storytelling and reality. We are great storytellers about how things are, but how they actually are may be different than the story. The irrational side is that we insist the story is the only way they are this causes the consciousness to identify with the story rather than perceive larger reality. And of course we have pains in ourselves, things that hurt us. They make us retreat into those stories that comfort us in life, that make us believe something. And it all starts of course from the childhood, when we are with each other as a children, and look the kind of dynamics that are created and how it carries to adulthood. You kind of become independent, but are you truly independent? And you know, the brain, it's a tool, and to learn to use the tool as well as you can, you have to optimize your soil. And this life doesn't always go to plan, of course, but we can still understand what reaps good results and what doesn't. So